just different ways of releasing and throwing. That's how you dial in your forehand, and how what feels comfortable is just play that 150-foot catch, 100-foot catch, and see what type of power they have in it. See if they even have that little wrist pop, and see what type of distance they have. See what speed they have in their release, and then kind of go from there. It's kind of, and then putting the disc in their hand and getting the comfortability, and then seeing how they place their fingers, how they first place their fingers without me showing them, just to see what they would want to do. So there's a few things that I enjoy doing, just to pick their brain before I give them total insight about what I know. And I want to know what they know. Nathan Alton here, from Wellington, Kansas, PDGA 73097. Sponsored by discstore.com out of Omaha, Nebraska, and DGOE out of Hutch, Kansas. And you are listening to the Clankers podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We have another great episode for you guys today. Hope you guys had a good weekend, got to play some disc golf, and hopefully you put something to work that you've learned from us in this previous episodes. Hopefully we give you a lot of advice in this next one. This is going to be information overload possibly, but if you want to improve your sidearm, this is going to be a great episode. What did we talk about today, Quinn?
Oh yeah, Horatio, we got a fantastic episode today, and I just want everyone to know that if you are struggling with your forehand, you are going to want to listen to this episode, maybe even take some notes down, maybe listen to it again, because you will be a better forehand disc golfer after this episode. And I put a story out on Friday. We're recording this on 9/10. I put a story that says, do you want to improve your forehand? 98% of people said yes. 2 people have so far said no in that poll. So this is not the episode for you two. You can click out of here. You don't need to hear this info. You're not getting any better. But for everyone else, this is the episode for you. If you want to improve your forehand, we're talking getting off the tee. We're talking approach shots. We're talking nose angles. We're talking discs. We have got so much info in this episode about how you can improve your forehand. You're going to want to make sure you stay tuned. If you do enjoy it, leave a comment down below. Let us know what your top forehand discs are, as well as leave a like rating on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably have already noticed that my camera has finally died, so apologies for that. Hoping to get that fixed. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a review. We always appreciate it. We love to learn what we can get better at. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Nathan on. Nathan, welcome in on the Clankers podcast. Super excited to have you, the 2021 champ of the Keeper of the Chains, and you've got a ton more victories under your belt. How are we doing today, man?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Doing good. I know for the people that don't know, Nathan here is a local player here in Wichita. I've been seeing some coverage of you from just some local tournaments and stuff. Definitely one of the top pros around here. You finally got to take down one of those tournaments. I know you've been close on some of the other ones, so that's very exciting. Yeah. Are you here from Wichita? How long have you been here?
I'm actually from Wellington, Kansas, 30 minutes south of here. I've been living in Wichita for about 6 years now, competing pretty heavily in the MPO field. I was living down in Wellington for a bit and just needed to get out of there and find some new competitive tournaments. And I started working at Ducks Flying Disc, 4 or 5 years ago, and kind of got me into the Wichita scene. So being there and getting to know everybody and kind of got me in the loop with everybody and getting to play the courses around here and just trying to take down MPO. I started advanced, played 3 tournaments, I think, and I felt like I could compete in the MPO division. So I made the jump pretty quick in 2015, I believe it was. So that felt great to do.
How long have you been playing disc golf?
I've been playing since 2012, roughly. Right when I got out of college, I found the game. When I got home, my buddy, he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and just to keep him busy and in shape and going through that chemo process, he asked me to go out and play disc golf. And I wasn't too sure about it. Going out to throw frisbees and in the heat, 100 degrees, I wasn't too sure. After working in the heat all day, I was like, I don't know about this, my man, but I'm glad I did. And he handed me an Innova Ape and a Champion Excalibur, and he told me to flick it, kind of throw it like a baseball. And ever since that day, I haven't looked back.
So are you a prior baseball player?
I am. I played college at Hutch JUCO. I transferred to Brown Mackie College, played a year there, and then went to McPherson College and finished my career out there. But knew nothing about disc golf then and found it after. So
What position did you play in baseball?
I played third and first, so the hot corner.
Nice.
So that transitioned really well and quick for me and into the game of disc golf. A lot of people like saw my potential and kept feeding me my, I would say, ego a little bit and said, "Hey, you got some potential to play the game." And I knew I had a little bit of background behind me with the baseball. So I mean, it, like I said, it transitioned really well. And with that 400-foot flick, it helps me a lot.
What is it about that baseball throw, just quickly, that you think transitions over so well into that flick?
That quick twitch movement, a lot of quick wrist movement. Being with baseball, you don't really always have to use your legs. You got to make your arm and your wrist every once in a while. So you don't always have to use your legs. So it transitioned really well for me, just with the wrist flick and the wrist pop. So,
is there any, I guess, like, for our baseball guys out there, are there any baseball drills that you would do back in the day that you still do or apply to disc golf now? Just wondering if there's any kind of drills that maybe would help other baseball players getting into the sport that they might be used to.
Yeah, I know I was just talking about not using your feet a lot, but right now with warming up, it's a lot of footwork and foot drills just to keep your legs under you. And I warm up a lot with mid ranges and putters a lot, just to warm myself up before tournaments and like even field work. I really don't go throw a long distance because I know what my distance is, but it's always throwing those controlled shots just to keep that game in tune.
Something that we hear all the time when trying to help out new players is if you want to get better, if you want to increase your distance, to start with slower discs, with putters and mids for backhand. Is that the same? I guess it would make sense. It's the same for flick, but is it the same? I feel like it would be a little different.
For when I first felt the flick in 2012, 2013, I felt the overstability. I felt the power and the heavy weight of the Frisbee early. So it made me want to learn other discs early and a lot of lighter weighted Frisbees. And that's how I figured out my hyzer flip really early in my game. I felt like throwing lighter weighted Frisbees and being able to hyzer pop disc. And that got me a lot of distance early. But I'd say stick with mid ranges and putters because that'll dial in your accuracy really, really early in your game. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I guess something to go along with that is, they really say to like slow down and just focus on your fundamentals when you're doing your backhand. And they say typically, newer players, you shouldn't really start with anything super overstable. But exactly. A lot of people out there are saying like, the Raptor, the Firebird, other very overstable discs are great for forehands. If you're just someone who's starting to learn forehand, trying to improve upon it, should you stay more to neutral and understable, or do you think you should go for the overstable stuff?
It's okay to try out a few overstable discs just to feel that true power of how overstable some of these Frisbees are and hard to throw. So I think once you feel how overstable and heavy some of these Frisbees are, it makes some newer players want to disc down and throw lighter weighted stuff. So I always try to Scorpius or something. I'm definitely gonna give them a zone or a buzz or something to flick and throw something really straight, and then I will hand you something overstable, and then you'll understand that. Yeah, let's dial in this straighter shot for a little bit.
Yeah, because I definitely have seen a lot of players who throw the flicks, and it happens in backhand too. But I feel like it happens in sidearm more. The people that throw only overstable stuff on their flicks, they just have that one flex shot that they do.
Exactly.
Is that a bad habit to have to go on in your game?
I wouldn't say it's a bad habit if you can grow from it. I started with a lot of hyzer pop, like I said. Flex came later for me. But yeah, hyzer pop is my go-to. I would love to see more people just start with that. And because I know when you're first starting, people are just coming over the top and just releasing and throwing as hard as they can. So it's all staying center, staying in the core and popping that wrist really. So.
And just to backtrack a little bit, playing that one round with you and seeing how dirty your forehand is and just how good it is, would you describe yourself as a forehand predominant player? And maybe if yes, what kind of leans you to do that more than your backhand?
Yeah, that baseball background in me, and then just being able to keep my head and my face towards the target's a big thing for me. I don't like turning my head too much. That's not what you would do in baseball. So you wouldn't turn your head away from the first base or the third base or second base trying to get the ball there. So I prefer keeping my head towards the target. I am working on my backhand a lot more. It's easier for me to forehand because if you can imagine being a right-handed batter, everything's coming through right there. And then being a baseball player, throwing right-handed, everything comes to that core point. So for me, throwing backhand, it's like me trying to swing a baseball left-handed, which is really hard for me, getting that core through with that right foot first. So it's something I'm working on. So it's backhand stuff for me.
Hey, and for most people, it's the opposite way.
Yeah.
Most people learn backhand and sidearm is tough. It's definitely tough for me.
Exactly.
And I feel like a lot of times I've kind of gotten lazy working on my turnover shot and it's improving. So I'm like, I don't need to practice my sidearm today. That turnover is coming along much nicer. And, but still there's some shots, you have to go to that sidearm.
It's good to have it.
And, I think you see a lot of pros. I feel like back in the day didn't throw as much sidearm, but now I feel like to compete at the top level, you have to have both.
When I first came on in 2015, I was really 2014 playing some tournaments around here. I was really the only one throwing a lot of distance sidearms, and it's kind of grown since then. You see Nolan Ramser, you see Logan Harpole. Man, them kids are chucking forehands right now. So their forehands are growing from their backhand. So when I was first starting, they were picking my brain a little bit here and there, which was really neat and cool to be able to share how the disc comes out of my hand, I'm learning, I'm picking their brains as of late. So Logan Harpole and Nolan, them kids are on one right now.
Let's kind of travel back to that 2014, 2015, when you first started to get into disc golf seriously, started playing some tournaments. You said you started off in advanced. What made you just start off in advanced? I feel like a lot of newer players will maybe start towards that intermediate rec. What made you go for advanced right away?
I had some good people around me that fed it to me. That's where I needed to be and start. Brandon Rusk, he was in advanced and an intermediate back and forth, and that's who I played with a lot back in my hometown. And he let me know, hey, you can play advanced. If anything, you can play with those top guys. And in my head, I was like, I'll give you advanced a try. And I did. And I got my butt kicked a few times. It took second and third, I think, to bend this pool. And I was like, man, I just, this one weekend, I told myself the next open tournament I'm going to play and I'm going to do it first. So it was pretty crazy.
What were you throwing when you started? Like in 2014?
I was sponsored by Millennium in that first year, I want to say. Ben Nis picked me up through Millennium, and then Dennis Bashholtz. I was throwing Scorpiuses and Firebirds and Moabs and what I'm still throwing now to this day, but I put in a Zone and a Buzz and a few other discs, a Raptor, just trying to change it up a little bit.
And so you had mentioned moving up to MPO rather quickly. Do you think that at any point you maybe did that too quickly, or do you think that was the right move for you? And I guess what kind of told you to do that other than, you know what, next opportunity I have? Like, was there something certain in your game that gave you the confidence to make that move?
I think it was the forehand. It was being able to just overpower a lot of my competition and just getting off the tee really well. I was getting off the tee better than a lot of people, and I still feel like I do get off the tee better than a lot of people around here. It's just dialing in that backhand and being confident in it come tournament time.
Did you ever go through a point or a time, when you got kind of good and you were kind of staying in advanced or AM, and you were, I guess, referred to as, I don't know, I'm curious, as sandbagging, or you were staying in that too long and people were giving you a hard time and you weren't sure when it was time? Did you go through that?
I didn't really have that too much. I guess what I can recall in Winfield, Kansas, it was a non-sanctioned event. I beat the field by, I don't know, 3 or 4, and I had a few remarks my way, but it didn't bother me too much, knowing that, hey, I'm gonna move up this next event, and I did, and I proved myself, and I proved myself to others that hey, I'm here. Beat Ron Converse, I beat Chris Smitty, a few other people. It was just Ben Wiggins. That was huge victory for me going up to Topeka, not really knowing what to expect by any means, but just playing my game. The true feeling of just playing your game, and that's what I did that day. I just played my game, not knowing anything else. Went into a playoff, lost on hole 4, but hey, I learned so much from that, and it gave me so much more confidence to just keep playing. Don't backtrack. Don't go back to advanced. You're here. Play the game.
Yeah, and I also imagine, getting a couple of those remarks probably isn't the worst feeling in the world because it's like, hey, you know what? At least I'm doing something right. At least they're not telling me to go down. So, I imagine that probably felt a little good there. I guess I just want to pick your brain about this because the Wichita scene is pretty popping, in my opinion. And I feel as though in this area, the rec division is pretty competitive. It's more competitive than other areas, even in the state of Kansas. Do you care at all about the air quotes sandbagging, or do you ever think that I guess like what's your thought on that? Because I always see people in the Facebook group. They're always like, "Oh, this person's sandbagging here. This person's sandbagging there. You should move up." Like, is it anyone's point other than the actual player themselves to have an opinion on that?
Everybody's got one. Everybody's got an opinion. You guys know that. But for me, it really doesn't bother me. Only thing that would bother me is someone who's really vulnerable and they're kind of getting ran over by the disc golf community a little bit. And I hardly ever see that. But if I do, I usually stand my ground for that person and let the other people know, hey, we're just having fun. This is their game. This is the on them. If it's bothering too many people around the Wichita disc golf scene, or if there is true potential of someone sandbagging, but I hardly see it too much. And people in the rec division, I don't talk to too often. We don't communicate all that well. I would love to communicate more with the lower divisions, but I don't see it too often. I really don't. I don't think it's too big of a deal unless there's 20 people griping at this one person for doing it 10 times in a row and winning over and over and over. But I don't really ever see it too much.
Yeah, I think it's something that's really tough. I mean, that's what we play. We go to league nights. I go to doubles every Wednesday if I can, and I'm playing in rec. I've only been playing for a year, and I feel like there has been less and less people kind of showing up. And this is just on our side, kind of. But I think less newer players and not competitive or skilled players showing up because some of these scores will go league night. It's on shorts, and a decent round, it's going to be like 11 down, 12 down or something like that, which is not a super difficult layout, but to somebody that's new and like start wanting to get comfortable playing 11 down, that's crazy. And I feel like it's discouraged a lot of players, but it's difficult for those people that are starting to become better and improve, and they're putting those scores down. It's not like, pro guys, they can come down if they feel like their game isn't good enough yet, or if they don't feel comfortable yet, they can come down. The rec guys, it's a lot more difficult. They can't just go up and just, completely go and just get destroyed. I feel like that would be worse for their game. So I guess what would you, or do you have any, ideas on that, for maybe those guys that are on the brink of going up, but, they're still not comfortable yet?
Really, it is just getting in your own head and telling yourself, hey, I can do this. I can play with the next division. I can move up. I can win. I can compete. I can get top 3. Set yourself a number, top 5, top 10, whatever it is. I don't know how many people are in your division in tournaments. If it's 20, set yourself for top 15. It doesn't matter. Just keep setting a number and keep moving. And once you hit that number, hey, let's go to league. Let's go play intermediate. Let's play some advanced and see what happens. And then you put down some crazy number. Hey, let's stay there for a little bit and let's show them you're here. Show them you're here to play and have fun. So that's all that matters. Having fun.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, disc golf is to have fun. And a lot of us listening to this podcast and going out to league, we're going out to have fun. So I definitely think that's important to keep in mind at the end of the day. Nathan, I want to ask you a little bit about the Keeper of the Chains 2021.
Mhm.
We played a practice round together on Wednesday during doubles, and I learned a ton and was able to make this connection to even get you on the show. So super thankful for that.
Yeah,
But I
appreciate it.
guess, you're going into that having to prepare for 3 different courses that all kind of play a little bit differently. What's kind of
So,
your mindset going into a big B tier like that? Having to learn 3 different courses, what are you doing anything different for that compared to maybe another tournament?
nothing too much with Oak being my home course and me being a park liaison of the course. I feel like I have Oak dialed in. Either I know every shot, I know every hole there. I know where every rollaway green is. I played Oak the last 6 years and lived right by it. So I have that course dialed in. Cessna, that was the first time I played since the 2018 Keeper of the Chains. Shot a couple strokes better than that year, but I don't really ever get out to Cessna too much in practice. It's a little out of my range to travel over there every other day or weekly to just go see the course. But I felt like I dialed that course in well. And then Clap, I have some history there with 2018 Keeper as well. And that's just get off the tee and give yourself an upshot and make a putt. So I really before Keeper I didn't practice. I didn't play much golf. That doubles round with you was the first round in I think a month or so. So I was just putting and practicing in the backyard, and then that's really about it. I didn't go practice any of the courses or anything.
I'm glad you mentioned putting. We're definitely a spin putter. A very one person that comes to mind, I guess, is Matty O.
Gotcha.
He is. Would you say you guys have kind of a similar
Yeah,
putt
that's kind of
style?
crazy you say that. It in the last year or two, it's switched up to his in a way of kind of pushing it through and like kind of spinning a little bit. Before it used to be, I don't know if anybody can say they can mimic Ricky's putt, but mine used to be like a push diving putt when I first started, and I guess trauma over years has changed my putts of rollaways and just stuff like that, and just different winds and being from Kansas, I've switched my putt up so much. To me, I really don't feel like a routine. It kind of switches often. Being from Kansas, I really don't have one. Which, talking with Ron Converse, he's tried to instill a routine in me, and we've tried to work on that a few times. But me and routines don't go too well.
What is it about that putting style that you like now, or that you works for you?
Right now it's spin it and see what happens. If it goes, I'm trying not to get too far past the bucket and trying to make an easy comebacker. That's my biggest issue and my biggest fear is not being too confident on my comebacker. So my spin putt right now is keeping me close to the basket if I miss.
Is there a big difference between spin putting and the putting that you were doing with Ricky, like in terms of timing? Because I feel as though there's an opportunity with spinning the disc. If you're just slightly off, there's more room for error. Is,
Exactly.
is there any kind of timing factor that you're really working on in your practice?
Yeah, no, definitely. Right now, I'm not too confident in my putting time release. So that's why it's kind of spinny. It's not too confident out of my hand. If you guys could get in my head and pick at it a little bit. And in that video, he edits it a little, edits the timing on it. If you guys got the full timing, I'm out there actually standing probably 20-25 seconds in my putt. And I'll be honest, I wasn't too confident in my putt timing this at the keeper. It would just happen, stuff happened to be going in and it happened to work. So my timing right now and my putting doesn't feel too comfortable. So that's something I'm working on right now too, trying to get that Ricky pitch pop putt again and being secure with one line. Right now I'm kind of spinning it on a line, not too confident, but hey, they're going in.
Yeah, that's working. I know I recently just changed up my putter. I feel like sometimes people get too comfortable with something. It's kind
Yeah.
of working, but maybe, it could be better.
Mhm.
People fall in love with a disc for certain clout. Maybe a certain pro is throwing it, or they
Yeah,
like it
exactly.
because a cool stamp or something, but maybe something else might work even better.
See, like right
Um,
now I'm putting with the Cenis, which is super overstable, but I have one that flies pretty straight to stable. And then I putt with my James Conrad AVR. So those are two totally different things, but Being from Kansas, the Cenis works perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. I love jawbreaker zones, and some
Mhm.
people think it's crazy, but like I used to putt with them before, kind of just for fun, and they kind of worked. And then I went back to my Wardens, and I recently just went back to my jawbreaker zones. They just feel really good in my hand.
Yeah.
Putters are really deep, and these just feel really good. And I feel like I put
You
them on
know
the
they're
line,
gonna fade for you. You know they're gonna come back and
yeah, and the shape of them, they're a little bit, I guess, faster. They kind of get to the basket. To me, it feels like they get to the basket
I
faster,
gotcha.
so there's less for them to deviate and whatnot. So they're working for me.
I agree.
But a couple of people like that's
No,
weird, like
I
whatever.
added
But
a jawbreaker zone a couple of weeks ago, and it's been working. Beating it up at Colwich, so it's been nice.
yeah, I love those things. I've been hoarding them kind of a bit.
Yeah, they
They're hard
are
to get, so I try to get
nice.
any I can get. But real quick before we move on, this was kind of we've talked a lot about sidearm. That's kind of where we want to
Mhm.
keep it for a little bit longer. Let's take us just give us a quick little clinic. Let's say you have a brand new player, they have a decent backhand, but you just want to teach them fundamentals. You want to teach them a sidearm, something they can take and go on and practice on their own. Take us, give us a quick little clinic of what you would teach them, how you would do it, kind of what's going to help them the most.
Definitely. New person playing the game, I'd play the round with them. We'd throw whatnot. If they just had the backhand, I would enjoy watching that and seeing what I can learn from their backhand. But yeah, I'd hand them something out of my bag, like a buzz or a zone, just to see how much power they have in it without hurting themselves by any means. See what type of power they have in it. See if they even have that little wrist pop, and see what type of distance they have. See what speed they have in their release, and then kind of go from there. It's kind of and then putting the disc in their hand and getting the comfortability, and then seeing how they place their fingers, how they first place their fingers without me showing them, just to see what they would want to do. So there's a few things that I enjoy doing, just to pick their brain before I give them total insight about what I know, and I want to know what they know. So, and if they don't know anything about the forehand, I'm right there to lend any bit of information I can, and I'll play however many rounds you want till we figure it out.
So once we get past that initial kind of info step, I guess
Mhm.
a starting point here is, what do you think is the best grip for a forehand? What do you grip with?
I am stacked. I'm stacked like this for mid range. I stack them for flexing, like a long flex shot. I kind of like bend my finger down and stack my finger like this on the rim. Like it's different, but yeah. But I'd say two finger, just stack and just playing catch. Play catch with your buddy. Play catch with your friend, and then just different ways of releasing and throwing. That's how you dial in your forehand, and how what feels comfortable is just play that 150-foot catch, 100-foot catch, and see what's there. See what's there for you.
Okay, so now we got the grip kind of down. And so now let's talk a little bit. Would you do run up? Sometimes I went to a standstill when
Mhm.
throwing flicks, and it's something on an upshot, you're going to go from a standstill.
Yeah.
But I know that's something we posted, and people were like, "That's weird. Why would you do a flick without a run up or whatever?" Someone new, would you recommend them doing a run up when they're learning the
Um.
sidearm, or kind of go to a standstill?
Once again, it really depends on how athletic and mobile they really are with their lower body. But if they are mobile with their lower body, we're gonna work on doing run ups and see how comfortable they are, if they can get their legs and body to release all at one point. If not, we'll just do some standstills. I would definitely do some standstills if they don't have their legs under them and they're not comfortable even with the backhand run up. We're gonna work on some just standstill one leg pops. Nothing too crazy. Just one leg, just one step flicks, really.
Yeah, that's kind of something I've been working on as well. watched a couple of videos by some other creators, and they say, yeah, you have to move the disc up and down like Paul does, or you have to do this big wave motion from the top of your head to the back of your head. And the more that I was trying to emulate that and thinking about it, I was like, man, this
A
is
lot of
just
room for error.
too much. Yeah, exactly, too much movement, too much room for error. And I found that in my own game, when I just stand there and throw the forehand without any movement from my lower body running up, it's so much better and it feels better.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm just personally working on as well, that maybe you guys out there listening, I would definitely try the standstill. It definitely helps a lot. So continuing forward with this clinic, are you putting in, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but when you're first getting started here, is it important to start out with something overstable so you can just learn the basic flight of a forehand? Or should you be starting to work on those flex shots immediately? Or what kind of shot shape should someone new to forehands be focusing on at the
I
beginning?
think someone new and someone new starting out with forehand, just strictly work on those up shots. Because even with me, that's where my game lacks quick. I can, like I said, I get off the tee really well. I don't feel like I lose that very fast. What I lose is up shots. So that distance of 150 feet to 200 feet, someone new should just start working on that distance right there, and don't even really try to throw too many forehands off the tee. Just use them as your approach and then work from there until you feel really comfortable to where you can get on the tee and start getting off the tee for birdie looks with a forehand. So
Yeah, that's something that's very interesting. In my game, I don't know how it happened, but it felt like sidearm approach shots were a lot more consistent when I was, in that 180, 150 distance, to the basket, and I wanted to be as close as possible or possibly run it. It felt a lot more scary and difficult for me to go with a backhand, choosing the right disc or choosing the angle right and having it to stall or whatnot, as opposed to a sidearm. You do a standstill. I flick my zone a lot, and so it's going to go pretty straight and fade a little bit. So it became super easy for me just every single time. I'm just going to flick it kind of just left of the basket time, depending on the wind. It's going to do pretty much the same thing. But that's kind of become something that's very dominant in my game is approach shots. I go to flicks. I normally don't go to backhand. And I feel like I'm able to scramble more. You'll have guys in situations where they can't throw that backhand approach shot. So that's something I would say where sidearm is a lot more beneficial, is to be able to scramble. Is that something that has helped you in your career?
yeah, no, definitely. A lot of standstills and taking knees, and Colwich helped me dial that in a lot. Finding myself in some rough spots, taking a knee, and then dialing in technically a standstill and just getting up and down. So yeah, Colwich, that woods course over there, has helped me dial in a lot of my standstills and knee approaches and whatnot. So,
And for those of you not in the Wichita area, Colwich is, I would say, our most wooded course that we have. So definitely get out to your wooded course if you have one. That will just help your game in general, but will obviously help your forehand. So I want to talk a little bit about the arm slot. I remember you telling me about, having that good arm slot and that good wrist pop. Should your elbow be close to your body, far away from your body? How should that arm be coming through during the forehand motion?
it sounds kind of crazy, but I feel like the elbow should almost swoop and almost touch the inside of your hip almost, in a way. Like, it's not going to hit it, but it needs to come in and compact and then push through on one line. Like, I don't get over the top too much unless I'm throwing a tomahawk, which is super rare. But yeah, coming through and just getting that wrist pop through the waistline is key. Don't deviate up or down. Get that nose up a little bit. You don't want your nose down too much with your forehand. You want your nose up just a little bit so it can kind of ride. But yeah, just get them hips through and punch that wrist through and keep your wrist up. Depending how you want the disc to fly, you need to keep your palm up too. Most of the time on a good forehand, you keep your palm up. Don't turn your palm down, or you're going to be turning stuff into the ground and turning stuff over too much. So keep that palm up and finish through, follow through.
I know it's probably difficult now because it's muscle memory and you've done it so much, but that wrist pop when you were starting out, or maybe even now, how much are you thinking about that during your throw, or when you were learning it or trying to improve that wrist pop? When do you think about it in your run up? When are you trying to engage that wrist, or does it do it on its own?
Uh, it's it's at the last second. I feel like my forehand's a lot different than a lot of guys on tour. Not saying distance wise and whatnot, but I feel like a lot of guys on tour are arm. With me, it comes from that forearm all the way to the wrist. So yeah, I'm thinking about it probably 70% of the time. The rest of the percentage, it just kind of comes. But so yeah, I'm definitely knowing how much pop I need to put into it, how much speed comes out of there. All those things come into factors for sure.
For those guys and gals who don't exactly know what wrist pop means, could you maybe just kind of explain what that is? Is that breaking your wrist and coming back through, or kind of walk us through that?
Um, Wrist pop would be for me, even on standstills, it's getting that arm slot through and that last second, just letting it. It's almost like a really good putt, like how a really good putt comes out of your hand. That wrist just snaps and putt and pops. It's the same thing, really, to me. Same finish through, same smooth one line only, imaginary line, and just follow it. And it's hard to explain. It's muscle memory. It's one forehand. I feel like is really hard to explain. I feel like those guys that have good backhands can break it down to a T.
Yeah, definitely, especially you coming from that baseball background. I've met other people who they come out and play for the first time ever, and they just throw a sidearm without even thinking about it. It feels more natural, that movement, because they've
Exactly.
played baseball, and they go out and just throw it, and it's just super natural, and they just throw it 250, 300 feet without even thinking about it because it's just that motion. So
Definitely.
what are some drills, that somebody can do in the field to try to get that motion down without hurting themselves? Because there's some injury if you're doing it wrong that comes with sidearm.
Yeah. I do a lot of band work. That disc golf strong, you go follow him. I do a lot of his little motion work and whatnot. Coming from baseball, I still have a lot of that instilled in me, and motions and a lot of band work from my coaches. That's what we did back in the day, and it still is a part of my life now. It's just instilling the band work, staying loose, and yeah, staying loose out there. You have to, as we're aging every day. So I feel it. I don't feel it too much after tournaments, but give me 4 rounds, I'm definitely feeling it.
Is there, I guess, any way to know that maybe you're engaging like your shoulder incorrectly if it's hurting after you're doing your forehands or sidearms? Or have you ever kind of dealt with that? Like, I know when I played baseball there towards the end, I definitely messed my shoulder up. And so every now and then, if I'm really going forehand heavy, I just don't have that much gas in the tank because it'll just kind of give out and just won't be able to give it that good effort or pop to it. So like, is there any way to maybe kind of dial that back or kind of understand, hey, this is a telltale sign. Maybe you should throw a backhand on your next shot.
Definitely. If you're feeling any soreness or pain, take it easy on this, because I've dealt with the pop in the elbow before. That was early on in my career. It took me out about a year. It was around 2000. After one of my first big wins, I had a pretty big injury. I threw a stiletto, and right when I released it, there was a big pop in the elbow. And yeah, if anything like that happens, you take it easy and know that backhand should be your go-to, or even taking a break or go see your physician for sure, because that's nothing to mess around with. That's some serious stuff, and that stuff hurts. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. That elbow pain, shoulder pain, that stuff hurts. But for me, when I know I'm throwing too many forehands, I start hurting on the back end of this little winged area back here. I really don't hurt in the shoulder too much. It's back here, and that just means I'm not stretching enough, not pulling across and getting loose, in my opinion.
Is that part of the reason why you're trying to learn more backhand, or is that just something you need for your game?
I just think it's part of the game. Just how a backhand player needs that forehand, I need that backhand. There's holes out there that are just call for it. And so if I throw this forehand on this hole, it's calling for a bogey. When I look at some of these holes, I'm like, there's just no reason to do that when I could play for par or try to get the birdie with that backhand, which I feel like I have a decent backhand. It's just believing it come tournament time. That's it. That's all it is. And it's between the ears. It's mental.
Which is so interesting because, like Horatio had mentioned earlier, it's truly the opposite for most people when it comes to forehands and backhands. So that's really interesting, and definitely appreciate you opening up about that. Another question that I have on this subject is, last episode we talked a lot about nose angle and how it's important in your backhands. Is nose angle just as important in your forehand? Earlier, you had mentioned you kind of want to release it just a little bit nose up. Last episode, we talked a lot about nose down, and maybe just explain how nose angle impacts a forehand.
I think for me, especially being from Kansas, I think nose down, that flight plate's gonna get exposed, and for me, being a lot of speed, nose down is gonna get me straight into the ground. If with a little bit of nose up for me, with my power, which I think my fastest forehand was like 75, 76, nothing too crazy, but you got to have a little bit of nose up just to get that distance, just to get that flight too, because I mean, nose down, you're not going to get that full distance and full flight. That's my experience and my knowledge of the flight of the forehand. Just
What
a little bit
about
of nose up.
what about wind? I know I've heard some pros, in situations talk about they went to either the sidearm or the backhand because of the way the wind was going,
Mhm.
and they went to that shot because it would be an advantage.
For me, so say like a headwind, I'm definitely throwing a forehand because I can release into it and I can throw just a mean hyzer pop into it. Something super stable, and it's gonna ride. It's gonna do its flat with a little bit of turn. For some people that are throwing the backhand into a headwind, they're exposing a lot of the flight plate, especially a right-handed player. They're turning it over or putting it on a hyzer pops. And something about throwing the forehand and committing into like a direct header, I feel like I have an advantage over a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely being in Kansas, that wind is unreal for sure.
So if
It
I throw
can
something
impact so
super
much.
stable, I can super stable, super overstable. If you watch the keeper footage on a few of those holes, there's some headwinds, and I just pop a hyzer out there, knowing it's going to stay on hyzer, maybe gets a flat, and it gets me 420, 430 most of the time. So that's my good distance.
Yeah, very impressive. And something I very briefly did want to mention before we kind of got to our other two segments is being in the keeper of the chains. You were going into that third round just playing hot, had a pretty sizable lead by the end of the tournament. Mainly, I want to talk about this back nine. I want to say going into the back nine, you had, I want to say it was a 3-stroke advantage on Nolan. And
Did.
in that moment, Nolan was truly, no disrespect to anyone else, but Nolan was really the only competition who could hunt you down. Let's talk a little bit about the mental side of that.
Yeah.
Being 3 strokes up with 9 to play, are you playing any different than if maybe you were down 3 strokes or tied?
I really wasn't. There was something about that final round. A calmness came over me. Kind of really the whole weekend. I didn't expect much. I don't enter a tournament without feeling I can win it. Even at any tour, like big tour, I've only played at 4 or 5 of those, but I go into it thinking, hey, maybe I can win this, or if I have a good day or something, a good weekend. But the keeper was just everything just happened to go my way in a way. No bad rollaways, nothing, no spit outs really. Just had one really bad putt in the second round from about 13 feet for birdie that kind of got to me a little bit. I thought, oh, hey, this is the big switch right here. Who's Nolan or Coda is going to take it from here? But I rode with it and got a few more birdies after that. And that, like I said, that final round, in a way, playing against a 16, 17-year-old kid, that kid is tough to beat. That kid has all the game and all the potential in the world to just be the best player in Kansas. So trying to keep up with him is a challenge in itself. That kid throws so far. That kid throws really far.
Yeah. It's a ton of fun to watch him throw.
It is. No, so the mental side I was clean between the ears. I didn't have no negative thoughts, no doubts or anything. It was just playing golf, playing and having fun. Because I've been beat by Nolan. I've been beat by 13 or 14 from the kids. So I just didn't. In a way, I kept telling myself, I was like, it ain't gonna happen again. I'm just gonna play my game and see what happens. That's what I kept telling myself. And then my buddy came up to me on hole 14, Brandon Rusk. He's like, "You're up by 5. Just put your foot on their throat and go." And that was some good insight, I guess, in a way. And I didn't look back.
That's one thing that's really fun about disc golf, and I guess makes the sport really enjoyable. And, there's not necessarily one player. I think there's 10 to 15 players, in the pro division on tour who have the potential to be, dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And any given weekend, they could win the tournament. But, like you said, there's some calmness came over you that tournament and you won. I feel like a lot of these pros on tour, any one of those 10 to 15 pros could win that weekend, but it's like whoever is able to figure it out that weekend, remain calm, stick to their plan, and just feel good, and everything kind of works. They say everything was just kind of working in my favor, and that's who wins. There's not really one player who's constantly dominating.
If you're right, if you can just ride the good things that happen and not get too high about it, knowing that something bad could happen, and then something bad does happen, what do you do with it? It's just, there's so many factors in this game of disc golf, and just being able to take a ball golf mentality, which I never had before. I didn't play a lot of single sports by myself, played a lot of team sports. So this is something very new for me, being out there alone and trying to figure it out. So I take a lot of respect for this game. It makes me a better person day in and day out. So
earlier you had mentioned how your buddy kind of gave you an update on what the score was and, said, hey, go stomp on their throats and let's go in this thing and win. When you see Nolan missing those birdie putts and being visibly frustrated and upset, does that almost kick another gear into you? Like, we're securing the bag, or are you not even paying attention to that and you're just so locked in on yourself?
I feel for him. I feel for anybody because every golfer in the world, even the number one golfer in the world, has been through those sadness and that little bit of unhappiness on the course. But he's young. He's maturing every weekend. That kid, he's got a long career ahead of him. In my opinion, I think he'll be the best to ever play the game in Kansas. That's just how I feel about that kid. I look up to him as I think he looked up to me back in the day for a little bit, and he might still. But the kid's got a lot of potential, and he's maturing every weekend. So I'm happy for him, and I'm one of his biggest fans around here. Him and Harple. So.
Yeah, those guys are very easy to root for. Really cool guys, awesome players. I know they make Kansas and the sport look great. But I think if you guys are ready, I think we are ready to get into the ace round.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick before we get in there, I want to get to the hot take for today's episode.
Gotcha.
Nathan, what is your disc golf hot take?
The game is like I was just talking about. If I didn't find this game, I'm not who I am today. I feel like today I'm a better person and just a better all human being because of the game. You can forget the game, but the game forgets you, but you can't forget the game. Like there's just, once you play this game, don't forget it. It's there. It's hard to explain something about it. You can not play for 2 months, but then that day out on the course is like you never missed it. Everybody should give it a chance. Disc golf is for anybody and everybody, and I preach to anyone that anyone can play the game. You can get it in the basket just like I can. So let's go play.
Yeah, I really like that.
I think that's well said. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Horatio said. And it is one of those things where I think the more people who hear, comments like that have the confidence to actually go out on the course and give it a try. And it's not just giving it a singular try and then being like, oh, wow, I suck at this. I don't want to ever go play again. It's
because that's how you'll feel the first time. Everybody felt like that. I felt that the first day. I was, I don't know about this. I look goofy out here. I feel funny. But no, once you do it again and keep doing it, the love's always going to be there.
Yeah, I feel like the only people that aren't like, I didn't feel like that. I'm the kind of person that's not competitive, but, addictive personality. I was like, this is cool. I want to be as best as I can at this.
Exactly.
And I haven't looked back since. I'm still just as addicted because, you can learn something every single day. Getting
better and better. And then those shots that go in or that ace, it's just like, man, there's nothing better. I always used to think that oh, the sound of the bat or the ball going in the glove was the best sound. No, disc golf, the chains, that's the best sound in the world.
Cool. Perfect. All right. I'm glad it was something positive. A lot of times I feel like these hot takes are negative or something pessimistic. So I really. All right. First question we got for you today is let's say you're taking someone on a forehand clinic and they want to go and start to develop their forehand. What 3 discs are you going to recommend to them that help them the most in forehand? Let's do a putter, a mid, and a fairway driver.
Okay. So with the putter that I know you can flick too, I like, well, they consider the zone a putter, right? Is that okay?
Putting
So
approach,
the zone, putting approach. You go there. I'd go with the Cenas too because I'm a little biased towards it because I'm able to flick those as well, and they can hold up some torque if you have it. But if you don't have torque, you get to see the stability, and that's how you can work across that stability. Is if you don't have a lot of arm speed, you start working with it. And then I'd say a driver or a fairway would be like I'd say a T-bird. I'd say fairway-ish. Yeah, get working with the fairway first before any high-speed driver. I know I was handed a high-speed driver, and it worked for me. I felt it early, but any disc I'm going to hand someone new is going to be easier for them. I'm not going to hand them the overstability too quick.
Nice. All right. Our next question we have for you is, what is your favorite course you have played and one course you would love to play?
My favorite course, I loved Beaver Ranch in Colorado. And then one course that I really want to play is Maple Hill or where they play Green Mountain Championships right now. I think that's one. Those are, Maple Hill or USTGC. But that's getting a bid there. I want to get a bid there and earn it that way. I don't ever want to just go play the course casually. I want to get that bid.
Yeah, either of those would be amazing. Maple Hill looks beautiful. All right, next question we got here is one tip you would give to yourself who just started playing disc golf.
It's not cheap. A lot of people say it's cheap,
but everybody says it's so cheap.
Not.
Yeah.
It's
as cheap as you want to make it.
Exactly. I had sponsors for a little bit that made it a little cheaper for me, but it can still get pretty expensive. And I can only imagine the cost for some of these top pros. I mean, they're striving to just do it on their own, and with the help of their sponsors, it's a beautiful thing. And then finding people on the road to be able to house you or stay here or cook for you. The game's hard, and just keep playing, practice, just don't give up.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what Horatio said. It is as cheap as you want to make it. You can play with the starter set, or you can be like me and have 50 discs that just sit on a shelf that you never throw. So it truly is whatever you want to make it. All right, Nathan, our fourth question we got for you. What is your favorite memory playing disc golf?
Favorite memory would be, oh man, just the people, the meeting new people. Just the disc golf scene in general is just like no other. We can be pretty biased towards it, but I don't know. You get a lawyer, you can get someone homeless playing the game. You can get a doctor, you can get a teacher playing the game. It's a beautiful sport that, like I said, anybody can play. Everybody can play the game. And it's fun seeing people from all over pick up a disc and play. So it's awesome.
Yep, that is so true. Especially if you Wichita here, it's very diverse. The players, go to league night, you see all kinds of people, and they're all there just to play. All right, last question we got here is, what is the biggest mistake you see new players make?
The biggest mistake, just throwing one manufacturer. I think that's the biggest mistake you can make, is handcocking yourself to just one company when there's so many different companies and so many different flights of frisbees out there to try. Just don't handcock yourself. Go try different companies and try different molds. Don't throw the same company right off the bat because you want to get sponsored or you think this is going to get you sponsored. No, just throw a mixed bag for a while and you'll love it.
That is some great advice, Nathan. We appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I learned a ton. Hopefully you guys at home learned a ton as well. Before we get out of here, where can people connect with you on social media?
Instagram at don't hate love Nate.com or .com. Don't hate love Nate, or Facebook. I'm on there. So check me out.
Cool. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for, taking the time to talk to us, and hopefully we get around in soon.
Definitely.
I'm at Oak all the time.
Anytime you guys see me out there, feel free to hop in, man. I'm always down to throw. So
cool, man. Well, good luck to anything the rest of the season.
Thanks,
and
Richard.
off season, and hopefully we'll see you around soon.
Appreciate
Take
you,
care.
man. Thanks, Quentin.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.